In the endless sea of stars far from the great trade routes and far from the grand centers of power, there was a small blue planet drifting quietly in the darkness. Its name was Earth, and in the eyes of the galaxy, it was nothing special. It was marked in the grand archives with a short note: low threat, low resource, low interest. No one cared to visit. And those who did left without finding anything they wanted for in the vast galaxy filled with worlds of crystal skies and endless energy seas of molten gold and mountains made of diamond earth seemed like a poor and forgotten child standing outside a shining palace. In the markets of the Orion Reach, where alien merchants spoke of wonders from across the spiral arms, Earth was barely a whisper. When its name came up at all, it was spoken with a lazy shrug. Some said the people they were still trapped on their home world. Others claimed they had ships, but only slow ones unfit for real exploration. In truth, humanity had reached into the void, sending small craft and machines out into the dark. But compared to the great fleets of the galaxy, these were little more than toys, and so the galaxy looked away and forgot. Yet in that quiet, there was something hidden, something no alien map or sensor had recorded, something waiting deep within the bones of the human race. It was not a resource that could be mined, nor a weapon that could be stolen. It was a fire, a will that burned unseen by any eyes, but human ones. It had slept for centuries, and it had learned patience. For Earth was a world that knew how to survive storms and wars and endless struggles. The great powers of the galaxy passed by without a second thought, their fleets like silver comets, leaving nothing behind but the faint echo of engines. Earth watched them go and kept its silence. In the deep command rooms of human space stations, the glow of quiet screens showed charts and records that outsiders could not read. The people of Earth knew they were seen as nothing, and they allowed it. They let the galaxy laugh. They let them believe. But one day that silence began to break. High above the rim of the Sol system, sensors on a lonely station picked up a strange reading. At first the crew thought it was an error, a glitch from old equipment. The lines on the screen wavered and flickered as if unsure of their shape, yet the signal kept coming stronger and clearer until there could be no mistake. Something massive was entering the outer edges of human space. Messages were sent through encrypted lines across Earth and its colonies, words short and urgent: inbound contact, unknown class, probable military origin. In the great cities of Earth, leaders gathered in sealed chambers, their faces lit by the pale light of projection tables. Data scrolled in endless streams, showing numbers and patterns that spoke of danger. In every line, the galaxy was coming not as traders, not as friends, but as a tide of war. The fleet was unlike anything humanity had seen before. Its formation spread wide like the jaws of a great beast, ships shaped like black blades gliding silently through the dark, each one bristling with weapons that could burn worlds in moments. Their hulls carried the mark of the Velther dominion, a name whispered even among the strongest empire. For the Velther were conquerors who knew no mercy. They had swallowed hundreds of worlds, leaving only submission or ashes in their wake. And now they were heading for Earth. Among the alien commanders, there was no fear, no hesitation. They saw Earth as a simple target, a place to take without effort, a world that could not stand against the weight of the dominion. Their records told them humanity had no fleets of note, no weapons worth fearing, no alliances to call for help. This was to be an easy hunt, a show of power, to remind the galaxy that the dominion could strike anywhere and none could stop them. But on Earth and in the scattered outposts of human space, the response was not fear. It was quiet focus. Orders moved like lightning through secure channels, awakening plans that had slept for years. The people who had built these plans had always known this day would come. They knew the galaxy would one day test the resolve of humanity, and they had made ready in secret beneath the calm surface of human life. Entire programs had been hidden from all alien eyes, weapons built in silent ships that never appeared in public registries, networks of stations on moons, asteroids, and even drifting among the stars. The first stage of preparation was simple: watch and wait. As the Velther fleet moved closer, they would learn nothing of human intent, not from open channels, not from scouts, not from any of their sensors. For human defenses were buried deep, invisible to normal scans. The fleet was allowed to approach as if there was no resistance, as if Earth was truly what the galaxy believed: weak, small, unimportant. Yet beneath the ocean's vast hangars opened to release machines the size of cities in the frozen dark of deep space stealth craft, drifted into new positions, their surfaces black as the void itself. In the shadows of the asteroid belt, hidden launch bays came alive with quiet energy, all of it unseen, unheard by the Velther, eyes still locked on their target. In the control rooms of human command centers, a strange calm settled over the people there. No shouting, no panic, only the steady exchange of short commands, each word carrying the weight of years of planning. They knew what they faced, they knew the power of the Dominion, but they also knew something the Velther did not. The galaxy had never seen the full measure of human capability for humanity, had learned through endless conflict not just to fight, but to adapt, to think, to turn weakness into strength in ways no algorithm could predict. From the first moment of contact, the outcome was no longer certain for the Velther. Believed they were facing prey and had prepared for prey. What they would find was something very different, something they could neither control nor understand. And so, as the great black blades of the Velther fleet cut through the darkness toward the small blue world, the people of Earth waited, their weapons hidden, their plans ready, their silence unbroken. The galaxy thought it knew this planet, thought it knew the humans who called it home, but the truth was about to be revealed in a way that would make even the most powerful empires tremble. The black shapes of the Velther fleet moved like a slow storm across the emptiness, their size and number turning the stars behind them into faint specks of light. Each ship was a weapon of war, its armor forged in the furnaces of worlds long conquered, its weapons charged with the power to burn entire cities. In moments, the Velther were sure of their victory, for they had faced countless worlds before, and each time they had left nothing but silence in their wake. In the War Council chambers aboard the lead ship, the Velther commander stood surrounded by tall glass screens filled with streams of alien code, each line confirming what he already believed: the human world was primitive and isolated. There was no sign of significant fleets, no sign of planetary shields or heavy orbital weapons in the records of the Dominion. Humans were a species of curiosity, not concern. Their weapons were old, their engines slow, their defenses laughable. To the Dominion, this was not a war, this was a harvest. On Earth, the leaders of the major nations sat in shadowed rooms deep beneath the surface, their faces pale in the cold glow of holographic maps. These maps showed the approaching fleet in grim detail. Each movement, each change in formation, the Velther ships were drawing closer with every passing moment. Still, Earth had not answered the demand for surrender, and this silence puzzled the Dominion. They expected fear, they expected pleading. Instead, they were met with nothing but a quiet that felt almost unnatural. Far from Earth, on a hidden moon base, a group of human officers watched the alien advance through deep space. Sensors, their screens displayed the fleet in glowing outlines against the black. They spoke in short, clipped voices, each word a part of a much larger plan. For years, humanity had listened to the galaxy laugh. They had heard the whispers that Earth was weak and harmless, and they had let the galaxy believe it. All the while, they built in secret, they hid weapons in places no alien would think to search. They trained soldiers in ways no alien could predict, and they waited for the moment when the truth would be needed. The first human response was not loud, and it was not visible. No grand fleets moved into position, no bright bursts of weapons fire. Instead, small signals were sent into the dark, invisible to the Velther eyes. These signals traveled to places even the Dominion had never mapped, to stations buried in asteroids, to deep space platforms drifting without light, to submarines resting on the ocean floor. Each one carried the same message: the spark has been lit. Across human space, these hidden sites came alive. Power systems that had been cold for years roared to life in total silence. Weapons were brought online by hands that moved with calm precision. Stealth ships, released from their cradles, vanished into the dark, moving without trails to reveal their path. Satellites that had seemed like harmless weather watchers shifted their orbits to form a silent network around the planet. Even the oldest probes out beyond the edge of a system began to respond to coded commands, changing their trajectories toward the enemy. In the Velther command center, sensors showed nothing unusual. They could not see the movement. They could not hear the preparations. For humanity had built these tools to be invisible to the kind of scans the Dominion trusted the fleet continued forward confident and blind. On the surface of Earth, the people went about their lives as normal. The cities were calm, the skies clear. There was no sign of panic, for the public knew nothing of the danger above their heads in the deep levels of military installations. However, the reality was known, and accepted men and women moved quickly between control rooms, passing coded messages, loading systems with strange-shaped warheads, calibrating devices that glowed with an unearthly light. These were weapons unlike any the galaxy had seen, weapons that had never been shown to outsiders for fear of what they might do in the wrong hands. In the great underground chamber, known as Bastion 1, the central hub of human defense, a single voice gave the order to prepare Phase 2. No one asked for confirmation. They all knew what this meant. The word spread through the network of hidden bases and stations, as if carried by the wind of fate. Back in the Velther fleet, a junior officer studied a small change in their sensor readings, something faint and unclear, perhaps only an error, but he reported it anyway. The commander dismissed it without thought. The humans could not threaten them. There was nothing to fear. They would strike the planet within 3 rotations of its sun and claim it as their own. They had already chosen which cities to destroy first as a warning. But the humans had not planned to wait until the enemy reached the planet. They knew the closer the Velther came, the more dangerous it would be. So the first move would happen far from Earth in the cold space, where the enemy felt safe. Hidden among the rocks of the asteroid belt lay a cluster of human stations unknown to any alien map, their surfaces coated with material that bent light and energy around them, making them appear as empty stone. Inside, however, they held weapons the size of towers. Weapons that had been sleeping for decades. As the Velther fleet passed into range, a single encrypted signal reached these hidden guns. The machinery awoke with silent purpose. Giant barrels rotated slowly, aligning with impossible accuracy in the black void. There was no sound, only movement. Then, with a flash of energy that no Velther ship detected, the weapons fired streams of projectiles that bent their paths in strange, impossible arcs, each one guided by human systems that anticipated alien countermeasures before they could even be made. The first of the Velther ships to fall never saw the attack coming. One moment, it was gliding in formation. The next, its hull was breaking apart in absolute silence, as if the ship itself had simply decided to cease existing. The others reacted with confusion, turning their scans in every direction, but finding nothing. Then a second ship vanished, and a third. The commander barked orders to spread out to scan for cloaked fleets, but there was nothing to find. The humans did not press the attack. They allowed the Velther to steady themselves, to think they had regained control, because the humans wanted the Dominion to come closer. They wanted them to believe that the danger was over and that Earth remained unguarded. Every decision was part of a larger design, a trap that had been waiting for years to be sprung. As the Velther tightened their formation and continued forward, a quiet confidence began to fade from their crews. There was no sign of the enemy, but they had already lost ships to a threat they could not see. Still, they told themselves this was a minor setback, that they would crush the humans just as they had crushed so many others. Yet far below, in the shadowed halls of Bastion 1, the human commanders already knew the truth. The spark had been lit, and soon the fire would burn across the void. The Velther Dominion believed they had faced all forms of resistance in their long history of conquest. They had fought against fleets of living metal, against swarms of bioengineered war beasts, against worlds that could turn entire moons into weapons. Yet nothing in their records prepared them for the quiet and invisible hand of humanity. The battle for Earth was not going to be won or lost in open fire, but in the shadows between. Moments where the enemy never saw the strike until it had already cut deep. Beneath the surface of the moon, in a complex known to only a handful of human leaders, ancient doors of reinforced alloy slid open to reveal vast chambers filled with machines unlike anything found in public records. Some looked like simple satellites, others like jagged fragments of rock, but each one held inside a hidden core of human design, combining old Earthborn engineering with stolen fragments of alien technology recovered. Over decades of silent scavenging, these machines had no names in the official archives, yet the soldiers and scientists who had built them whispered a single title for them: ghost knives, for they were made to slip through the dark unseen and to strike without warning. The order to deploy was given without ceremony in the cold silence of space. Several hundred objects drifted away from the moon, each one disguised to appear harmless, some even shaped like chunks of ice or debris, yet under their false shells thrummed engines, so quiet they barely disturbed the dust of the lunar surface. They began to spread outward into patterns invisible to alien eyes, weaving a net so fine it could catch a shadow. Meanwhile, on the far side of Earth, in the deep Atlantic, a fleet of human submarines lay still, their hulls coated with layers of strange black material that absorbed sonar and scattered energy scans. Inside them, crews worked by dim light, loading warheads into launch tubes, warheads that carried payloads no alien had ever seen, designed not to destroy, but to blind, to confuse, to turn the enemy's own technology into a weapon against them. For humans had long learned that the mind of the enemy could be as fragile as any armor. The Velther fleet pressed forward, cutting through the void with a confidence that was beginning to crack. They had lost ships without seeing the attacker, and though their commander barked orders with the same sharp authority as always, there was a weight in his voice, now a faint strain, as if some small part of him understood that this was no ordinary campaign. Still the Velther moved in disciplined lines, their blades of metal gleaming under distant starlight, unaware that they were already walking into the unseen hands of their prey. High above the asteroid belt, a small human vessel drifted without lights, its design unlike any known ship in human fleets, its frame thin and twisted as though built from the bones of some deep-sea creature. Within its hull sat a crew of only 6, their faces calm, their eyes fixed on screens, showing the Velther movements in ghostly outlines. The ship carried no heavy guns and no shields, for it did not need them. Its purpose was to see, to listen, and to whisper instructions into the dark that only human machines could hear. The crew moved their hands over controls without sound, guiding the invisible ghost knives toward their marks, each movement calculated not for speed, but for inevitability. The first strike of the hidden hand came without a flash or a roar. It began as a tremor in the sensor networks of the Velther, a faint flicker in the readings, a delay of less than a heartbeat. Then the images on their main displays twisted, showing fleets where there were none, and emptiness where their ships should have been. The commander demanded a reset of all systems, but the problem only grew worse as the ghost knives spread their influence deeper into the Dominion's eyes and ears. In the middle of this confusion, the human submarines far below the surface of the ocean launched their strange warheads. Each one rose silently through the water into the air, and then into the sky, leaving behind only ripples in the dark sea. As they left the atmosphere, they released clouds of microscopic shards, each shard carrying a small transmitter tuned to frequencies the Velther did not monitor. These clouds drifted invisibly toward the enemy fleet, attaching themselves to hulls and weapon systems, feeding them false data and corrupting their targeting arrays. For the Velther crews, the effect was immediate and unsettling. Weapons locked onto friendly ships, shields flared in response to attacks that were not their navigational systems, shifted their courses by fractions of degrees, sending entire formations out of alignment. The commander shouted for manual overrides. But even as the crew tried to take control, their own displays began to show lines of human script moving like living things across the screens. Humanity had not just prepared to defend itself, it had prepared to take the weapons of the enemy and turn them inward. This was a tactic born not from raw power, but from centuries of survival, from fighting wars where numbers and size had been against them, where victory had depended on making the enemy doubt what they saw and what they believed. In Bastion 1, the human command center deep below the surface of the planet, the room was silent, except for the steady exchange of short commands. Data streams showed the Velther fleet fracturing their perfect formation, breaking into smaller groups. As they tried to escape invisible attacks, the human commanders did not cheer. They did not speak of victory, for they knew this was only the beginning. The hidden hand had struck, but the real blow was yet to come. On the Velther flagship, the commander stood before a massive viewpane, staring into the dark void ahead. For the first time in many years, he felt something close to unease. The human world still lay far before them, small and silent. Yet somehow the battle had already begun, and he could not see his enemy. He could not measure them or predict their next move. In the Dominion's history, fear was something they inflicted, not something they felt, and yet Here it was cold and silent in his chest. The humans had shown only a glimpse of what they could do. They had revealed no great fleets, no massive weapons, only small precise strikes that left the Dominion blind and stumbling, and the commander began to wonder if perhaps that was exactly what the humans wanted to show, for if prey could do this, what would a true predator do when the time came to kill? The Velther Dominion had always believed in the clarity of battle. For them war was a thing of clean lines, an overwhelming force. Their fleet struck with precision and left no room for doubt. But now, in the cold emptiness between worlds, that certainty was breaking like thin glass under unseen pressure. Their ships no longer moved as one. The flawless formation that had carried them across countless campaigns was twisted by errors that came from nowhere. Screens blinked with ghost readings showing phantom ships in places where only darkness should be. On the flagship, the commander paced before the great tactical display, his eyes tracing the glowing outlines of the fleet. He gave orders to recalibrate every sensor array, to strip away the noise and find the true positions of their vessels. Yet as the minutes passed, the false images did not fade. They multiplied. Entire squadrons seemed to vanish from the map, only to reappear in impossible positions, as if space itself had been around them. This was not the work of crude weapons. This was an attack on the mind of the fleet, on its ability to see and to know. Far away, hidden in the black shadow of a nameless asteroid, a human stealth vessel observed every movement of the Velther ships, its crew silent, and focused. Their screens displayed the real positions of the Dominion fleet, unbroken by deception and interference. The captain of the vessel gave a single command to initiate the second phase of the trap. At once, coded signals invisible to alien sensors were sent to dozens of hidden human assets scattered across the system, each one waking from long sleep to play its part in the unfolding strike. The first visible blow came when a Velther destroyer drifting at the edge of the formation suddenly erupted in a burst of silent light, its hull splitting open like paper under a blade. The crew had no time to send a distress call before the void swallowed them. The surrounding ships turned in confusion, scanning for the source of the attack, but saw nothing. Then a second destroyer vanished, followed by a cruiser whose engines flared violently before going dark. The Velther commander shouted for all ships to raise shields and prepare for close engagement, yet no enemy ships appear to challenge them. In the depths of the asteroid belt, automated human weapons fired again and again, each projectile guided by intelligence systems designed to learn and adapt in real time. The Velther countermeasures that had defeated countless foes before failed here, for the human weapons changed their paths in the blink of an eye, bending around shields and slipping between armor plates to strike at the most vulnerable points. There was no pattern to predict, no rhythm to follow, only chaos that grew with every heartbeat. Inside the Velther fleet, confusion turned to fear. Crew members whispered of invisible predators hunting them in the dark. Some believed the humans had somehow become part of space itself, striking from nowhere. Others thought they were fighting ghosts. The commander silenced such talk with threats, but even he could feel the cold edge of uncertainty cutting through his resolve. He had expected a quick and clean operation, but instead he was losing ships without even seeing the face of his enemy. On Earth, in the deep command halls of Bastion 1, the human leadership watched the results of the attack with cold satisfaction. The fleet readouts showed the Dominion force weakening, its lines breaking into smaller fragments as individual captains tried to escape the unseen strikes. The humans had learned long ago that fear could spread faster than fire, and now they were watching it take hold in one of the most feared militaries in the galaxy. Still, they did not speak of victory, for they knew the Velther had not yet shown their full strength, and that the next moves would decide the fate of the system. In orbit around Neptune, a human strike group lay hidden in the shadow of the great planet, their ships, coated in layers of material that scattered every form of energy, scanned. Each vessel carried weapons that had never been tested in open war, weapons built not just to damage, but to erase, to cut away sections of an enemy ship as if they had never been real. The order to fire came quietly, and without delay, beams of energy invisible to the naked eye lanced out into the void, striking at the core systems of the nearest Velther battleships. One by one their lights went out, leaving them to drift powerless in the black. The Velther crews tried desperately to restart their systems, but found their controls unresponsive, their reactors silent, their weapons dead in the water. They had no choice but to watch as smaller human craft emerge from the darkness to attach to their hulls, cutting through with tools that seemed impossibly fast. Human boarding teams poured inside, moving like shadows, their armor dark, and unmarked, their weapons silent and precise. No shouts, no wasted fire. Only a relentless advance toward control. Centers and data cores they came not to destroy, but to take. The first stolen Dominion ship was gone from the formation before the Velther could react, its systems now under human control, its course shifting to join the invisible human network. The second and third followed soon after, each captured vessel a treasure of technology and intelligence far beyond what the humans had possessed before, and each one a blade turned against the fleet that had once owned it. From the farthest edges of the battle came reports of more losses. The Dominion's long-range support ships were being picked off by weapons that seemed to come from nowhere. Their supply lines cut, their communication relays destroyed. The once proud and unstoppable Velther fleet was now bleeding from 100 unseen wounds, and still no human flagship had been sighted, no central fleet to engage, only whispers in the void and strikes that came without warning. The commander of the Velther force felt the weight of the moment pressing against him. The mission had been simple: destroy or subjugate the human world, bring it into the fold of the Dominion. Yet now he faced an opponent who refused to fight by the rules, who refused to stand and be crushed. Instead, the humans had turned the battlefield into a maze of shadows, where every step forward led deeper into danger, and the more the Dominion struck, the less certain they became of their enemy's location, strength, and even numbers. On the human side, there was no celebration, only preparation for the next step, for they knew the Velther would soon adapt, and when they did, the battle would shift again. The humans had set the trap and sprung it, but now they would have to hold the line against the storm that was coming, for the Dominion was wounded but far from defeated, and a wounded predator could be the most dangerous foe of all. The first phase had been the strike from the shadows, the silent hand that reached out to blind and confuse the Velther. Now came the moment the humans had been waiting for, the shift from hidden claws to open teeth in the dark. The Velther had stumbled. Now they would be driven into the storm humanity had built for them. In the frozen black between planets, the scattered human forces stirred into motion. Stealth craft emerged from the void, their black hulls shedding the darkness as they ignited engines for the first time in days. In orbit around the moon, concealed hangars opened and released sleek strike ships, each one carrying weapons that had been tested only in secret drills along the rim of the asteroid belt. Camouflage launch bays flared with silent bursts, sending swarms of guided projectiles into the cold toward the fractured Dominion formation. The Velther commander saw the change. Instantly, the attacks were no longer single strikes from invisible places. Now there was movement on every side, new contacts appearing on sensors faster than they could be tracked, small ships weaving through the debris fields and past disabled vessels, hitting from angles no standard defense grid could cover. He shouted for the fleet to tighten formation, to regroup for mutual protection, but his orders met the chaos of battle. Half the fleet was already out of position, and the other half was under attack from multiple directions. Human strike teams moved with deadly coordination. One group of fast interceptors cut through the outer edges of the Velther fleet, targeting fuel depots and reactor housings, their weapons precise and minimal, designed to cripple without waste. Another wave came from behind, using the wrecks of destroyed ships as cover to launch their assault from unexpected vectors. Every strike left another Dominion ship drifting powerless, while human boarding teams in matte black armor slipped inside to seize control. The boarding actions were unlike anything the Velther had faced before. The humans fought without hesitation, without wasted motion. They moved in small units, communicating through silent signals, using the corridors and bulkheads as if they had trained aboard these alien ships for years. Every move calculated to reach control centers in the shortest possible time. Velther defenders fought with savage discipline, but they were unprepared for an enemy that adapted to their tactics in seconds. In the depths of one captured cruiser, a team of human engineers worked to bypass the alien security systems, their tools a strange mix of human craft and repurposed Dominion tech. They had already unlocked access to the ship's weapon arrays, turning them against their former allies. The Velther realized too late that every ship they lost to boarding was another blade in the hands of their enemy. From the surface of Mars' long-range artillery platforms hidden beneath the red dust came online for the first time in the conflict. Their barrels elevated toward the dark sky and fired massive kinetic rounds at velocities too fast for the eye to follow. Each impact tore through armor, plating like paper, sending fragments of metal spinning into the void. The projectiles carried no explosive, just raw speed and mass enough to punch through even the largest battleships. The humans had planned their counterattack not as a single crushing blow, but as a flood tide of strikes from so many directions that the Velther could never respond to them all. Every moment they tried to turn and face one threat, they left another exposed, and the humans were already there waiting. The Dominion formation, which had entered the system like a wall of black steel, now looked fractured and uneven, with ships drifting out of control, and others firing blindly at targets that were no longer there. Inside Bastion 1, the human commanders watched the real-time data streams with the same cold focus as before. They tracked the shifting patterns of the Dominion fleet, marking the weakest points and sending rapid orders to units in the field. One moment a group of fighters would peel away from their current target to intercept a Velther carrier. The next, a hidden platform in the shadow of a moon would open fire at a ship whose shields had just dropped for a fraction of a second. It was a battle of precision and timing, every strike perfectly placed. The Velther were beginning to understand the scale of their mistake. They had come expecting to face a planet with no fleet, no strategy, no ability to resist. What they found instead was an enemy that had been preparing for them for decades, perhaps longer, an enemy that fought not with raw power, but with cunning and adaptability that no training manual could teach. Their records held no clear counter for such a foe. In the middle of the battle, the Velther commander issued a new order: withdraw the fleet from immediate engagement and regroup beyond the orbit of the outermost planet. Yet even this retreat was contested. Human forces pressed them every step of the way, striking at engines, at communication relays, at navigational systems, anything to slow the Dominion ships and keep them within range. The retreat became a desperate scramble, with the humans shaping the path of the fleeing fleet like herders guiding prey toward a chosen kill ground. Out beyond Pluto's orbit, a trap was waiting, a massive ring of satellites disguised as cold rocks and ice chunks, their surfaces covered in frost to blend with the surrounding field. As the Velther ships passed through the ring, the satellites activated at once, releasing a sphere of interference that collapsed their long-range communications and disabled several key targeting systems. The humans surged in for the final blows of the phase, hitting crippled ships with waves of fire and boarding actions. By the time the Velther managed to break free from the trap, their losses were staggering. A third of the fleet was gone, another third was crippled or captured, and the rest carried the scars of a battle they had not been ready for. The humans had shown them a form of war that did not rely on strength alone, but on intelligence, speed, and an almost ruthless ability to turn any weakness into an opening. In the silence of the retreat, the Velther commander stood alone on the bridge of his damaged flagship, staring at the fading image of the blue planet that had refused to kneel. He thought of the stories told about humanity, stories dismissed as myth or exaggeration by the Dominion scholars. Now, those tales no longer seemed so far from truth, and a thought crept into his mind like a shadow. If this was how the humans fought when defending their home, what would they do if they chose to go on the attack? Across the galaxy, whispers moved like a cold wind through empty halls, carrying the same story from one corner of the stars to the other. The story of a world once ignored, a blue planet that once stood silent at the edge of the spiral, now standing as the reason mighty fleets break and fall. The Velther Dominion, which once crushed worlds like dust, now lay broken in shame, their grand fleets torn apart by those they thought were nothing more than primitives. The shock spread fast like a fire in dry grass, and soon the name of the humans reached the ears of every ruler, every trader, every soldier, and every pirate in the known galaxy. In the trade hubs of the Vega Belt, alien merchants spoke in low voices, telling each other of strange human tricks They told how human ships seemed to appear where they should not and vanish. When tracked, they told of weapons that bent light and sound, and of machines that read alien code, as if it were a simple child's book. And the strangest part was how fast the humans learned each alien weapon they captured became a part of their own fleets within days. And in some cases, within hours, there was a fear here, not just of their weapons, but of their minds. In the shadowed meeting halls of the Zern Syndicate, the elders debated in deep unease. The humans, they said, are not like others. They do not fight for conquest, nor do they bend under power. They fight like they have no choice, like every battle is a final stand. And they do not seem to fear death. A younger council member asked if they should send spies, but the oldest among them warned that spies sent to Earth never returned, or if they did, they spoke only in strange half-words and broken thoughts, as if their minds had been touched by something beyond reason. Far away in the high towers of the Nalthar Union, the war leaders gathered in silent agreement to change their maps of the galaxy. The Sol system, once marked in pale gray as unimportant, was now marked in deep crimson to mean danger. The commanders advised their fleets to keep at least 10 jumps away from any human patrol routes, not because of treaties, but because they could not risk an encounter for the first time in many years. The Nalthar Union felt something close to fear. On the rim worlds near the dark edges of known space, pirate lords began to speak of the humans with respect they never gave to any lawful power. They spoke of raids that ended with entire pirate fleets simply gone without a signal, without a distress call. Some pirates claimed that humans sent warnings in advance telling them to leave human space or face destruction. Those who ignored the warning vanished from the galaxy, their names erased like they never lived. Meanwhile, on Earth, the governments met with calm voices and steady eyes. They knew the galaxy watched, and they knew the galaxy feared, but they did not seek to rule the stars. Instead, they built stronger shields, faster ships, and deeper alliances between their own nations, for they understood that fear could turn to hate, and hate could bring another war. Humanity had been underestimated once, and they knew it would not be the last time. In the great orbital city of Aerith Prime, alien news screens played endless images of human fleets moving in perfect silence, black holes absorbing the light of nearby suns. They showed the wrecks of Velthar ships drifting cold and empty in space, while human salvage crews worked with swift hands to strip them for parts. The anchor spoke of humans with a mix of awe and caution, some calling them a new rising power, others warning they could be the greatest threat in centuries. The galaxy began to shift in subtle ways. Trade routes bent away from Sol systems. Edge stations that once ignored human ships now greeted them with polite caution, and armed escorts, diplomatic envoys, were sent with gifts and treaties. Though many were unsure if the humans would care for such offers, the humans accepted some and declined others, always with the same calm tone, as if they were never in a rush, never in need to prove themselves. Rumors began to spread of human experiments that reached beyond known science. Some claimed they had found ways to fold space without gates. Others whispered they had weapons that could silence a star for days and then light it again as if nothing had happened. Most believed these were wild stories, yet none wanted to test if they were false. In the dark halls of the Galactic Council, voices rose in heated argument. One group urged that humans must be brought into the council before their power grew unchecked. Another said the humans would never bow to such authority and might see it as a threat. A few even suggested striking first before the humans could grow stronger, but these voices grew quiet when reminded of the Velthar defeat. None wanted to share that fate. Through all of this, humans moved quietly among the stars. They explored, they mapped, they learned. Every contact with another race was noted, every ship design studied, every strange mineral or energy source recorded. They knew the galaxy better each day, and the galaxy knew this too. Every alien leader understood that the humans were not just warriors, they were thinkers, builders, and planners, and this was what made them truly dangerous. Then came the day when Earth sent a single message to every known channel, in every known language. It was simple and without threat, but its meaning shook the stars. The message said, "We seek peace, but if you come for us, be ready to lose everything." This was not shouted, it was not wrapped in anger. It was stated like a truth of nature, like the rising of a sun and the falling of a night. After that day, the galaxy seemed to breathe in silent. Civilizations began to keep their fleets far from human paths. Warlords changed their plans, traders altered their charts. No one wanted to be the next lesson in human history. The Velther Dominion still existed in name, but its fleets were scattered, and its will was broken, and its story became the warning told to every young captain in flight academies across 1,000 worlds. Earth had not set out to make the galaxy tremble, but the galaxy now shook all the same, and in that trembling, a new balance of power was born, one that no one could have predicted from a small blue world, once called nothing special. The galaxy was quiet, but it was not the calm of peace. It was the silence before a storm no one wished to start, and in that silence the name of the humans became something greater than a name. It became a weight, a measure, a shadow that stretched over every star and every spaceport, from the smallest moon outpost to the largest station in the galactic core. The word human carried more than fear. It carried respect and a strange kind of hope. For some, on the rim of the Orion Path, a convoy of traders from 3 different worlds gathered at a fuel station. Their ships were scarred from old raids, their crews weary from long travel, and yet when a single human patrol ship docked nearby, the entire station seemed to stand straighter. The human ship was small, sleek, black, with a silver crest on its side, the crest of Earth. United Fleet. The traders nodded to the human crew, not as subjects to rulers, but as soldiers nod to other soldiers, knowing they stood in the presence of those who had faced the Velther and survived. Far away on the ocean world of Thyrassa, the Council of Elders met in the great coral hall. The waves crashed outside, sending deep echoes into the chamber. The elders spoke of trade routes and defense pacts, and more often than they would admit, the humans, one elder said, the humans learn like the tide. They leave and return, each time stronger and wider. Another warned that their patience is long and their memory longer, for they never forget those who wronged them, nor those who stood beside them. In the shadow ports along the edges of black space, pirate kings who once laughed at Earth now spoke in low, respectful voices. Some had seen human fleets arrive in utter silence, like hunters in a dark forest, and leave only wreckage behind. Others told of strange human codes sent before attacks, codes that warned enemies to stand down or be erased. Some pirates took the warning and lived to tell the tale. Others ignored it and became nothing more than drifting metal. At the heart of the Galactic Council, the debate over humanity's place had grown into something deeper than policy. It was a question of survival. Some argued that bringing humans into the Council would balance the growing fear. Others said inviting them would only give them reason to see the Council as a threat. In the Great Silver Chamber, where ambassadors from 100 species gathered, the human seat remained empty, not because they refused to come, but because they had never been asked directly. Meanwhile, on Earth, the leaders watched and planned. They did not rush to claim territory or demand tribute. They studied the shifting routes of trade, the sudden increase in alien visits, the quiet way enemy fleets avoided soul space. The United Fleet grew stronger, not in numbers alone, but in skill and design. Each ship that returned from beyond human borders carried something new, a weapon, an engine, a method of stealth. Each was tested, improved, and integrated into the whole. The common people of Earth also changed slowly. They heard the stories carried back from the stars. They saw the faces of alien traders in their markets. They learned new languages and new ways of thinking. A child in New London could now name the constellations as seen from 3 different worlds. A farmer in the green hills of Argentina could speak to a buyer on the ice moon of Calthor. Without leaving his home, humanity was no longer a single planet. It was a growing presence, spread like roots into the soil of the galaxy. But power always draws challenge, and in the deep dark beyond mapped space, a coalition of shadow fleets began to form. These were not united by race or flag, but by a shared fear and hate of the humans. They were smugglers, failed warlords, exiled captains, and broken empires, and they believed that together they could do what the Velther could not. They built in secret, drawing from old technologies and forbidden weapons, crafting ships meant to strike fast and vanish. They called themselves the Veil of Silence, and they swore their fleets would fall upon Earth before the humans could prepare. Yet human intelligence was not idle. Spies hidden in the markets of distant stations heard whispers of the Veil's movement. Scout ships on the edge of deep space saw traces of mass ship production. Each clue was taken, each hint examined, and the picture grew clear. The Veil would come, and they would come soon. The United Fleet began quiet preparations, redirecting certain ships, reinforcing hidden bases across the outer systems, and moving civilian traffic away from vulnerable lanes. When the first Veil scouts entered human space, they expected to find empty patrols. Instead, they found a wall of dark-hulled ships waiting in perfect formation. No words were exchanged, no warnings given. In one coordinated move, the human fleet split and surrounded the intruders, cutting their engines with precise strikes and boarding them before a distress call could escape. The captains of the Veil ships were taken alive and brought before the human command, not for revenge, but for questions. The interrogation rooms aboard the flagship Sol Invictus were silent and cold. The human officers spoke little, letting the captured captains speak in their own fear and arrogance. Bit by bit, the Veil's plans unfolded, their numbers, their routes, their hidden docks. Every detail was recorded and cross-checked. Within a week, the entire Veil network had been mapped, and within a month, it was gone, erased from the galaxy as completely as if it had never existed. Word of the Veil's defeat spread faster than the news of their formation. Once again, the galaxy had seen what happened to those who came for Earth, and once again the warning was burned deeper into the minds of all who listened. Some races saw this as proof that humans were dangerous and must be avoided. Others saw it as proof that humans were the allies to have when the dark came knocking. As the years moved forward, humanity's reputation settled into something rare. They were not conquerors, yet no one could conquer them. They were not rulers, yet no one could rule them. They moved through the galaxy like an old story retold in new words, each time carrying the same lesson. Those who walk with respect beside them will share in their strength. Those who move against them will vanish into the cold void. And so the stars turned to trade, lanes shifted, and the quiet before the storm became the quiet of understanding. The humans had earned their place not by asking for it, and not by taking it, but by showing the galaxy that even the smallest world could stand against the largest empire. And in doing so, they had changed the balance of power forever.